Somewhere far from the chaos of Los Angeles traffic and San Francisco tech towers, 10 small towns were quietly defying everything we thought we knew about housing. They weren't glamorous. They didn't have Whole Foods or Tesla chargers on every corner. But they had something the big cities lost long ago: peace, safety, and homes with price tags that didn't make your stomach drop. Places where you could still own land, not just rent air. And the first one on his list? A town that almost sounded made up: Calipatria. Calipatria sits out in Imperial County, where the desert stretches endless and the stars still own the night. On paper, it sounds like a mirage. Homes listed under $150,000, taxes around 0.8%, utility bills barely $140 a month. But standing there, the truth felt solid. The grocery clerk knew his name by the second visit. Strangers waved as they passed on the single main street. The quiet was almost heavy, like time itself had slowed to catch its breath. He realized something strange: affordability had a sound. It wasn't traffic horns. It was wind through mesquite trees. And yet, even paradise has thorns. Summers here hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit. The air can taste like sand. But compared to the endless anxiety of the coast, that heat felt like freedom. And freedom, he was learning, is worth a little sweat. He drove north next, chasing another rumor: a lake town where homes sold for less than a parking space in San Jose. When he reached Clearlake, the water shimmered like glass beneath the Northern California sun. The median home price hovered around $235,000, but tucked in the side streets, listings still popped up under $150,000, two-bedroom cottages with lake views and yards big enough for a garden. Retirees sat outside diners sipping coffee, waving at fishermen as they drifted by. Life here moved at half speed, and somehow, that felt like double the life. Groceries cost less, utilities stayed low, and the local Adventist health clinic meant you didn't have to trade peace for safety. Still, wildfire smoke sometimes rolled down from the hills, a reminder that nature, like the market, never stays still. But as he watched the sunset bleed over the lake, he couldn't shake one thought. Maybe the secret to surviving California wasn't escaping it, it was rediscovering it. A few hours south, between farmlands and highways, he found a town few outsiders could even pronounce: Corcoran. The road stretched flat, bordered by cotton fields that glowed gold at dusk. This was the kind of place where the post office still matters, where everyone greets you by name, and where a one-bedroom apartment rents for $900. The numbers almost didn't make sense. Homes sometimes listing for $150,000 flat. Property taxes under $1,500. Meals for under $15. The math worked. But the lifestyle? That was the real bargain. Neighbors stopped by with fresh produce. Church bells echoed through hot afternoons. And though summers hit triple digits, there was something grounding about it. A rhythm that reminded you money isn't the only kind of wealth. Still, the heat was relentless. Jobs scarce. Nights eerily quiet. But in that quiet, he realized something: the silence wasn't emptiness. It was ownership. The kind where your name isn't just on the deed, it's whispered across town like you belong. Further east, foothills began to rise, and the farmland gave way to pine. The next stop, Porterville, felt like a crossroads between old California and new. With 63,000 people, it was big enough for coffee shops, small enough for peace. The median home price sat near $327,000, but he found listings under $180,000, real houses, not shoeboxes. Here, retirees strolled farmers' markets, and the Sierra Nevada mountains framed every view like a painting. Life cost 25% less than the state average. Utility bills around $150, groceries fair, healthcare solid. For anyone surviving on $3,000 a month, that difference meant security. Yet, like everywhere in the Central Valley, wildfire smoke sometimes tinted the air, a reminder of California's fragile beauty. But standing on his porch, watching the mountains blush at sunset, he didn't feel fragile at all. He felt something rarer, stable. And in today's California, stability is rebellion. 4 towns in, and his list was just warming up. The 5th, Hanford, was where California's history met its future. Brick-lined downtown streets. A courthouse square that still hosts festivals. And homes, believe it or not, still surfacing for under $150,000. Hanford's median home price sat around $375,000, but it felt like time had forgotten to update the market here. Locals shopped at family grocers, not chains. The air smelled like dairy and dust, a strange comfort that whispered, home. A $2,000 Social Security check could actually stretch. And Adventist Health Hanford, a full hospital, meant retirees didn't have to sacrifice care for calm. Yes, summers cooked the streets and the nearest big city entertainment was 40 minutes away. But in Hanford, you didn't need distraction. You needed belonging. And belonging here came with front porch chairs and neighbors who knocked just to talk. He smiled, realizing this wasn't nostalgia, it was survival in its simplest form. By now, his journey had turned spiritual. Every stop revealed something deeper about California. The version hidden behind celebrity headlines and luxury condos. But the next town felt almost mythical. Groveland. Perched 3,000 feet up, near the gates of Yosemite, the air here smelled like pine needles and rain. Houses sometimes listed for $175,000. Property taxes sat under $1,800 a year. You could actually breathe. Groveland wasn't built for hustle, it was built for healing. Mornings began with sunlight filtering through trees. Evenings ended with stars so bright they felt close enough to touch. Sure, you had to drive 40 minutes for a full hospital. But that drive wound through mountain curves where deer wandered freely. The trade-off wasn't loss, it was perspective. Groveland reminded him that maybe, the best way to retire isn't to slow down, but to rise up. At this point, he'd seen desert calm, lake serenity, and mountain quiet. But what about those who still needed the heartbeat of a town, the markets, the schools, the sense of motion? For that, he drove to Tulare, the Central Valley's beating heart. A 70,000-person hub known for dairy farms and one of the biggest ag expos in the world. Median home prices hovered around $352,000, yet scattered listings still surfaced below $180,000. Renters paid half of what Los Angeles demanded. Healthcare through Adventist Health Tulare kept retirees confident. The math, again, worked. But Tulare's real secret wasn't in its spreadsheets, it was in its spirit. You'd see teens playing baseball under fading light, grandparents walking downtown hand in hand, and neighbors dropping off groceries for anyone sick. It was still a community, not just a zip code. And that, he realized, is something you can't buy in Malibu, not even for $1 million. He pushed deeper into farm country, where the citrus air grew thick and the world slowed. Orosi. A town so small most Californians drove past without knowing it existed. Population 9,000. A single grocery mercado. Kids riding bikes through dusty streets. Homes here listed between $140,000 and $170,000. Numbers so rare they felt like typos. Property taxes hovered low, and with the state not taxing Social Security benefits, retirees actually got to keep what they earned. It was hot, scorching, even, but the warmth matched the people. Life revolved around church, family, and fresh oranges. There were no luxury malls, no Starbucks, no pretentious brunch spots. But there was laughter echoing from porches and barbecues that lasted past midnight. He realized Erosi was more than affordable, it was authentic. And in a world of filters and facades, authenticity was gold. But if Erosi felt like a step back in time, the next destination felt like a different planet altogether. Trona. Out in the Mojave Desert, where the land looks lunar and silence reigns. Homes here sold for as low as $60,000. Some barely $40,000. Taxes under $1,000 a year. You could buy property outright without a mortgage. For retirees living on savings, that meant true independence. No loans. No landlords. Just ownership. The sunsets burned orange against salt flats, and at night, the Milky Way painted the sky like an ancient mural. It wasn't luxury, it was liberation. Of course, Trona was remote. No fancy shopping, few hospitals nearby, and summer heat that demanded respect. But the trade-off was peace so profound it scared him at first. Then he understood, silence is wealth too. Maybe the richest people aren't the ones with the most noise, but the ones who can finally hear themselves think. By the time he reached his 10th and final stop, the journey had become personal. He wasn't just looking for affordable towns anymore. He was looking for something else, proof that California still had heart. Oakdale gave him that answer. Dubbed the cowboy capital of the world, Oakdale sits where the valley meets the Sierra Nevada foothills. Here, rodeos fill weekends and western storefronts line historic downtown streets. Median homes cost $555,000, but fixer-uppers still dipped near $180,000. Groceries were reasonable, taxes stayed modest under Proposition 13, and utilities averaged $160 a month. But numbers couldn't explain the feeling. Sunlight bouncing off red barns, kids chasing dogs down dirt roads, the local diner where everyone greets you before you even order. It wasn't glamorous. It was grounded. And for the first time in decades, he realized that's what Californians were really missing, ground beneath their feet. He spread out his notes that night, reviewing all 10 havens: Calipatria, Clearlake, Corcoran, Porterville, Hanford, Groveland, Tulare, Erosi, Trona, and Oakdale. 10 towns the media ignored. 10 places where normal people could still own homes, raise families, and retire with dignity. He laughed softly, thinking of how the news keeps saying, "Affordable California is dead." Maybe the headlines just stopped looking in the right places. Because beneath the noise, these towns were still alive, breathing, building, waiting. And that's when the realization hit him. The California dream was never about luxury. It was about space. Space to live, to breathe, to belong. These hidden havens weren't loopholes, they were lifelines. Proof that even in a state known for excess, simplicity still survived. For retirees on fixed incomes, young families chasing roots, or anyone tired of living paycheck to paycheck, these places whispered the same message: come home. So before we go any further, pause for a second. If this journey made you think differently about California, hit that like button. It helps others find these forgotten gems. Comment below the one town that surprised you most, or maybe the one you'd move to tomorrow. And subscribe, because the next story might just show you the hidden havens in your own state. Together, we can keep proving the American dream isn't dead, it's just relocated. But what came next changed everything. A week after his trip, one of the towns he'd visited, Trona, made headlines. A buyer had snapped up 5 homes for less than the price of one Bay Area condo. Investors were noticing. The secret was out. Suddenly, these havens were at risk of being discovered, priced out by the same cycle they'd escaped. He felt a strange urgency, the kind you get when you find treasure in plain sight and realize the clock's ticking. Affordable California existed, but maybe not for long. He revisited Clearlake to see if anything had changed. And it had. A small fixer-upper that listed for $145,000 was now under contract for $165,000. Still affordable, but inching upward. Locals joked that their quiet refuge might become the next, affordable Napa. He smiled, knowing irony when he heard it. But deep down, he also knew something vital. Hope, once rediscovered, spreads fast. And maybe that's the best kind of contagion. By the end of his travels, his car was dusty, his map folded, and his heart unexpectedly full. Each place had its flaws, heat, smoke, distance. But they shared one truth. Dignity costs less than you think. And maybe that's what the media doesn't show you. It's not just about money, it's about meaning. In a state where million-dollar homes can still feel empty, these hidden havens offered something priceless. Neighbors who wave. Skies you can actually see. Nights that end in peace instead of traffic noise. As he watched the final sunset from Oakdale's main road, horses grazing in the fading light, he whispered the same question that started his journey. Why didn't I hear about these places sooner? Maybe now, you have. Because these 10 havens prove something powerful. The dream isn't gone, it's just quiet. Waiting for someone bold enough to listen. And that someone might just be you.